California sunlight spilled across the polished countertops of Ocean Blue Bow Cafe, casting golden rectangles on the worn wooden floor. The rhythmic hiss of the espresso machine punctuated the afternoon lull, a familiar soundtrack to Samantha, Sam Reeves's daily routine. At 32, she moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who had perfected the art of being invisible while in plain sight. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, her movements economical and precise as she prepared a triple-shot Americano. Three naval special warfare officers sat in the corner booth, their voices carrying just slightly louder than appropriate. They were young SEAL candidates, their postures telegraphing the particular brand of confidence that came with elite training but not yet tempered by combat. Sam knew the type. She'd seen hundreds pass through the cafe doors over the years, situated as it was just 2 miles from the Naval Special Warfare Command. "I'm telling you," said the tallest one, Lieutenant James Lennox, according to his nameplate. Kandahar in 16 was something else. The insurgents had Barrett 50 cals. You could hear those rounds crack overhead like thunder. Sam's lips twitched slightly as she tamped down espresso grounds with practiced pressure. The Barrett M82A1 didn't make a cracking sound. It produced a distinctive boom followed by a rolling echo. Lennox was embellishing, likely for the benefit of the two junior officers flanking him. She'd heard the real thing many times, both incoming and outgoing. "Order up for the SEALs," she called out, her voice neutral, pleasant even. She set 3 ceramic mugs on the counter. Lennox approached his 6'2" by frame, casting a shadow across her workspace. "You always seem to know who's Navy and who's not," he said with a smile that had likely disarmed many women before her. "Got a thing for sailors." Sam's expression remained professionally bland. "Just observant," she gestured to his insignia. "Those tend to give it away." "Fair enough," Lennox laughed, gathering the 3 mugs with practiced ease. "Hey, we're having a get-together at O'Malley's tonight. You should stop by when your shift ends." "Thanks, but I've got plans." The lie came easily practiced over years. Sam turned away, heading to the back room where her shift replacement was due in 15 minutes. The storage area doubled as a break room with a narrow bathroom and a small locker for personal items. She pulled off her coffee-stained apron and reached for her bag on the upper shelf. As she stretched, her shirt rode up, slightly revealing a glimpse of ink on her lower back. The door swung open without warning. "Hey, I forgot to ask if—" Lennox stopped mid-sentence, his eyes fixed on Sam's exposed skin. "What the hell is that on your back?" Sam yanked her shirt down, but it was too late. Her heart rate accelerated the automatic combat response she'd spent years suppressing. 3 exits from this room, the door Lennox was blocking the bathroom window too small for an adult, and the ceiling access panel that led to the HVAC system. "Nothing," she said, turning to face him, fully creating distance between them. Lennox's expression had changed from casual interest to something sharper, more focused. "That looked like a trident tattoo. Were you Navy?" Before she could answer, the other 2 officers appeared behind Lennox, curious about the delay. "What's going on?" asked the shorter one, peering around Lennox's shoulder. "Our barista here has a SEAL tattoo," Lennox said, his tone shifting to amusement tinged with something harder, or at least something trying to be one. Sam shouldered her bag, her posture straightening almost imperceptibly. "Excuse me, my shift's over." "No, wait." Lennox blocked the doorway more deliberately now. "Let's see it. Because unless things have changed drastically in the teams, I don't recall any female Navy SEALs making it through Bud CRS." The silent calculation ran through Sam's mind, how quickly she could disable Lennox without causing permanent damage. The response time of his teammates, the witnesses outside the cameras at the front of the cafe, but not here in the back room. "Move," she said simply, her voice low and even. Something in her tone made the smirk falter on Lennox's face, but he held his ground. "Just curious about your ink. If you're going to wear the trident, at least get it right. The serration on the prongs is all wrong, and what's with the snake wrapped around it? No respectable SEAL would—" "I never said I was a SEAL." Sam's eyes met his, holding steady. "Now move." The second officer, sensing the tension, tugged at Lennox's arm. "Come on, man, leave it." "Nah, this is stolen valor territory." Lennox persisted, his pride now engaged. "You know what happens to people who pretend they earned the trident?" Sam felt a flicker of genuine anger, the first real emotion she had allowed herself in this town for months. "Mind your own business, Lieutenant." "Oh, so you know ranks. Did you read that in a Tom Clancy novel along with your SEAL fantasies?" Lennox snorted, looking to his companions for approval. "What is it, a drunken mistake from Tijuana? Or are you one of those military groupies who, Sam moved, not with the full speed and force she was capable of, but enough. Her shoulder connected with Lennox's solar plexus as she stepped forward, creating just enough space to slip past him. The contact appeared incidental to observers, but the precise pressure point was intentional. Lennox exhaled sharply, momentarily winded. By the time he recovered, Sam was already through the doorway. "The hell?" he gasped, turning to follow her. "Looks like you're not the only one who can't take a hint," called Rachel Mitchell from behind the counter, her arms crossed. As the cafe owner and wife of a naval intelligence officer, she commanded a certain respect even from brash young officers. Sam nodded a silent thanks to Rachel and pushed through the front door, the bell chiming as she stepped into the California sunshine. Behind her, she could hear Lennox's voice. "That's not even close to a real trident. SEALs would laugh her out of the room." The words followed her down the street, echoing in her ears, alongside memories she'd spent years trying to bury. The apartment Sam called home was neither luxurious nor neglected, just anonymous. Located in a middle-income complex 5 blocks from the ocean, it was remarkable only in its unremarkability. White walls, beige carpet, standard-issue furniture that could have been assembled from any big box store's catalog. The only personal touches were hidden from casual observation. The reinforced deadbolts on the door, the subtle security sensors on each window, the go bag packed with essentials and 10,000 in cash stashed in the air vent, and the false bottom in her closet containing a Sig Sauer P-26 Navy model with 3 magazines of hollow point ammunition. Sam stood under the shower, letting the hot water cascade over her shoulders, watching as it traced the contours of the tattoo that covered much of her upper back. Steam filled the bathroom as she turned, catching her reflection in the mirror. The trident intertwined with a serpent was a masterpiece of ink, but she didn't admire it for its artistry. The tattoo served a dual purpose, covering a network of scars that would raise questions and marking her as a member of a unit so classified that most SEALs themselves believed it was merely a rumor. As the water ran cold, her mind drifted back to another shower, makeshift and frigid, in a forward operating base in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. February 2012. The grit of the desert had worked its way into every crevice, the fine dust a perpetual coating on skin and equipment alike. She'd been 22 then, already 4 years into her CIA career, and newly assigned to Project Viper. The memory came unbidden, the weight of the modified M40A5 sniper rifle, the distinctive Schmidt & Bender PM-STI 525-56 scope with its specialized ranging reticle. The rifle had been customized for her smaller frame without sacrificing an ounce of lethality. The folding stock had reduced the overall length by 4 inches, the trigger pull adjusted to 2.5 pounds of pressure, light enough for precision, but heavy enough to prevent accidental discharge. She remembered the first time she'd used it in a live operation. A Taliban commander had been coordinating attacks against a SEAL team operating in the valley below. Her position had been precarious, a rocky outcropping with minimal cover, 187 yards from the target. Wind gusting at 15-20 mph, temperature dropping as the sun set, and the humidity affecting both bullet drop and her scope's clarity. She had controlled her breathing, slowed her heart rate, and calculated the complex ballistics equation that would send a 170-grain hollow point through a moving human target in high wind conditions. The shot had been perfect, clean. Through the commander's left temple as he turned to issue an order. The man never heard the report of the rifle that killed him. The SEAL team below never knew who had eliminated the threat. Project Viper operated that way. Ghosts supporting America's most elite warriors from the shadows, never acknowledged, never credited. Sam shut off the water with a sharp twist, banishing the memories back to their locked compartment in her mind. She dried quickly and dressed in simple jeans and a high-necked shirt that completely concealed her tattoo. The confrontation at the cafe had been a mistake, a breach in her carefully constructed cover. She'd allowed Lennox to see something he shouldn't have, and worse, she'd reacted with a skill set that a simple barista shouldn't possess. Her phone vibrated with an incoming message. "Rachel, still on for tonight." Sam hesitated before responding. The annual Navy Ball at the Hotel Del Coronado was the last place she should be showing her face, especially after today's incident. It would be filled with naval special warfare personnel, intelligence officers, and senior military leadership, the very people she'd spent 3 years avoiding. Yet Rachel had been her one genuine connection in this self-imposed exile. The wife of Thomas Mitchell, a naval intelligence officer who worked closely with SEAL teams on deployment planning, Rachel had no idea of Sam's true background. She'd hired Sam at the cafe 2 years ago without asking too many questions about the gaps in her resume and had become something close to a friend. "Not sure it's a good idea," Sam typed. The response came immediately. "Don't you dare bail on me. Tom is stuck in meetings all night. I refuse to go alone and be cornered by Admiral Jensen's wife again. Besides, you already have the dress." The dress. Sam looked at the garment bag hanging on her closet door. The black dress had been an impulse buy during a rare shopping trip with Rachel last month. Floor-length elegant with a modestly plunging back that would, if she wore it, put her tattoo on full display. For 3 years, Sam had lived in the shadows, careful never to draw attention, never to stand out. She disappeared from official records after the disastrous end of Project Viper, emerging with a new identity constructed by handlers who believed she was dead. She'd chosen this life of anonymity over the alternative, a life spent looking over her shoulder for the enemies she'd made, both foreign and domestic. But tonight, a reckless impulse was taking hold. Maybe it was Lennox's arrogance or the accumulated weight of years lived in hiding, or simply exhaustion from maintaining a facade that felt increasingly hollow. "Fine, pick me up at 7, she replied. As she set down the phone, Sam caught her own reflection in the bedroom mirror. For just a moment, she saw not the barista who served coffee to sailors, but the operative she had once been, the woman who could put a bullet through a man's eye socket from 1,000 yards away while calculating wind vectors in her head. That woman had been buried. Tonight, Sam would see what happened when she allowed a piece of her to resurface. Down. The Hotel del Coronado rose like a Victorian fantasy against the darkening sky, its distinctive red turrets outlined by thousands of twinkling lights. Built in 1888, the beachfront resort had hosted presidents' royalty and Hollywood stars over its long history. Tonight, it played host to the Navy's annual formal ball, an event that brought together officers and their families for an evening of tradition and carefully orchestrated camaraderie. Sam sat in the passenger seat of Rachel's car, her hands uncharacteristically restless in her lap. She wore the black dress, its silken fabric, a stark contrast to her usual utilitarian clothing. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant knot, exposing the nape of her neck. Diamond studs, cubic zirconia actually purchased for occasions, just like this one, glinted at her ears. "You look incredible," Rachel said, applying a final touch of lipstick in the rearview mirror. "I don't understand why you hide in those baggy shirts all the time when you could look like this." Sam managed a small smile. "The cafe doesn't exactly require evening wear." "Well, you should dress up more often. Who knows, maybe you'll catch the eye of a dashing naval officer tonight." Rachel waggled her eyebrows suggestively. "That's the last thing I need," Sam murmured, but Rachel was already climbing out of the car, handing the keys to the valet. As they walked through the grand entrance, Sam felt a familiar tension between her shoulder blades, the awareness of vulnerability of exposure. The ballroom was filled with naval personnel in their dress whites and blues, the gold braid and insignia catching the light from crystal chandeliers overhead. Spouses and partners in formal attire circulated through the crowd, champagne flutes in hand. Sam accepted a glass from a passing waiter, using it as a prop rather than a beverage. Her eyes scanned the room automatically, identifying exits, calculating sight lines, noting the positions of security personnel. Old habits. "There's Tom's commanding officer," Rachel said, nodding toward a group of senior officers near the stage. "Let's go say hello." Sam followed reluctantly, keeping her posture relaxed despite every instinct urging her to turn and walk away. As they approached the group, she recognized Admiral Jensen, his chest decorated with rows of ribbons and medals. Beside him stood a shorter man with steel gray hair and the weathered features of someone who had spent decades in harsh conditions. "Rachel, lovely to see you," Admiral Jensen said warmly. "Where's Tom tonight?" "Stuck in meetings, I'm afraid," Rachel replied. "May I introduce my friend, Samantha Reeves?" The Admiral nodded politely, but it was the gray-haired man who extended his hand. "Commander Cameron Hawkins," he said, his voice a gravelly baritone. "Pleasure to meet you, Ms. Reeves." Sam shook his hand, noting the calluses and strength in his grip. "Likewise, Commander." There was nothing in his eyes to suggest recognition, and Sam allowed herself to relax fractionally. Commander Hawkins was a name she knew well, though they had never met in person. A SEAL team leader with more than 2 decades of covert operations across the globe, Hawkins was something of a legend in special operations circles. Project Viper had provided intelligence support for his team on at least 3 operations she knew of. "The commander is being honored tonight," Admiral Jensen explained. 25 years of distinguished service, most of which I'm not allowed to discuss in mixed company. He chuckled at his own joke. Congratulations, Sam said, keeping her eyes steady on Hawkins. That's an impressive career. Thank you, Hawkins replied, studying her with the practiced assessment of someone used to evaluating potential threats. And what do you do, Ms. Reeves? Before Sam could answer, a commotion near the ballroom entrance caught their attention. Lieutenant Lennox and his companions from the cafe had arrived, their dress whites immaculate, their voices carrying across the room. If you'll excuse me, Sam said quickly, turning away from the group. Rachel, I'm going to find the ladies' room. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, keeping her back to the wall as much as possible. The last thing she needed was another encounter with Lennox and his curious eyes. She made her way toward a set of French doors that opened onto a balcony overlooking the ocean. The night air was cool against her skin as she stepped outside, the sound of waves breaking on the shore, a welcome respite from the music and conversation inside. Stars scattered across the sky above, and for a moment Sam allowed herself to breathe deeply, to exist without the perpetual vigilance that had become second nature. The moment was short-lived. "Well, look who it is," came Lennox's voice from behind her, the barista with the knockoff seal tattoo. Sam turned slowly, finding Lennox and his two companions blocking the doorway back to the ballroom. Lennox had a glass of whiskey in his hand, his expression caught between amusement and something harder to define. "Lieutenant," she acknowledged coldly. "Enjoying the evening?" "I was," he said, stepping onto the balcony. "And then I saw you. Gotta say, I'm curious what you're doing at a Navy ball. This isn't exactly open to the public." "I'm a guest of Rachel Mitchell," Sam replied, maintaining her composure. "Tom Mitchell's wife." "Intelligence Mitchell," one of the other officers asked. "Huh, small world." "Very small," Lennox agreed, his eyes never leaving Sam. "So small that I'm wondering how our local barista with the mysterious seal wannabe tattoo is buddies with an intelligence officer's wife." Sam felt the situation shifting into dangerous territory. "Excuse me," she said, attempting to move past them. Lennox stepped into her path. "What's the rush? I'm still curious about that ink. Not every day you see a woman sporting a trident, especially one that's, what's the word, bastardized." "I think you've had enough to drink, Lieutenant," Sam said quietly. "And you're making a scene." "No scene," Lennox insisted, his voice rising slightly. "Just a friendly conversation about military appreciation versus appropriation." One of his companions looked uncomfortable. "James, maybe we should head back in a minute," Lennox cut him off. "I want to see this tattoo again, because if I remember correctly, it had some kind of snake wrapped around the trident. What's that supposed to be, a mermaid's pet?" A small crowd had begun to gather near the French doors, attracted by the rising tension. Sam felt the weight of eyes on her, the curiosity and judgment. This was exactly the kind of attention she had spent years avoiding. "Lieutenant Lennox," came a stern voice from the doorway. Admiral Jensen stood there, his expression darkening. "Is there a problem here?" Lennox straightened immediately. "No, sir, just having a conversation with Miss Reeves." "It sounded more like harassment from where I was standing," the Admiral replied. "Perhaps you and your friends should rejoin the party inside." "Yes, sir." Lennox shot Sam a final look before retreating with his companions. Admiral Jensen approached her, concern evident in his weathered features. "Are you all right, Ms. Reeves? I apologize for the lieutenant's behavior." "I'm fine, thank you, Admiral." Sam maintained her composure despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "Just needed some air." "Well, don't let those young bucks drive you away from the festivities," he said kindly. "The commander's recognition ceremony is about to begin. You wouldn't want to miss it." Sam nodded, following the Admiral back inside with reluctance. The crowd had thinned around the edges of the ballroom as people took their seats for the ceremony. Sam located Rachel at a table near the back and slid into the empty chair beside her. "Where have you been?" Rachel whispered. "You missed the appetizers, and they were actually edible this year." "Just getting some air," Sam replied, her eyes scanning the room for Lennox and his friends. They were seated several tables away, their backs to her. A hush fell over the ballroom as Admiral Jensen took the stage, tapping the microphone to ensure it was working. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor tonight to recognize an extraordinary naval officer whose service to this country spans a quarter century. Commander Cameron Hawkins has led some of the most challenging special operations in recent military history, from the mountains of Afghanistan to the deserts of Iraq and beyond." Sam half listened to the Admiral's speech, which carefully outlined Hawkins' career while omitting any classified details. She knew some of those omitted operations firsthand: the hostage rescue in Somalia, the high-value target extraction in Yemen, the intelligence asset recovery in Pakistan. Project Viper had been the invisible hand supporting SEAL team operations, providing crucial intel and occasionally lethal intervention from afar. Commander Hawkins took the stage to thunderous applause, his posture military straight, despite the years of combat stress on his body. He spoke briefly, his words focused on the men he had served with rather than his own accomplishments. The credit belongs to the operators who stood beside me in the darkest places on Earth, he said, his voice carrying through the silent ballroom, and to the unseen guardians who watched over us, the intelligence officers, the support personnel, and those whose names will never appear in any record, but who were there when we needed them most. Sam felt a chill run down her spine. Hawkins couldn't possibly know she was here, couldn't be referring to her or Project Viper. Yet his words struck uncomfortably close to home. As Hawkins concluded his speech and stepped down from the stage, the orchestra began to play again, signaling the transition back to the social portion of the evening. Officers and their partners moved to the dance floor, while others returned to the bar or formed conversation groups around the perimeter. "I need to use the ladies' room," Sam told Rachel, rising from her seat. "I'll be right back." She made her way through the crowd, conscious of the exposed tattoo on her back. The black dress had been a mistake, a moment of rebellion that now felt foolish and dangerous. She should never have come tonight. After using the restroom, she would make her excuses to Rachel and call a rideshare home. The ladies' room was mercifully empty. Sam checked her reflection in the mirror, noting with professional detachment that she looked every inch the civilian she was pretending to be. No one looking at her would see the woman who had once lain motionless for 18 hours on a rocky hillside in Taliban territory, waiting for a high-value target to appear in her scope. As she exited the restroom, she nearly collided with Commander Hawkins in the hallway. "Pardon me," she said, automatically stepping aside. Hawkins paused, his eyes briefly meeting hers before sliding past to glimpse her back as she turned. In that moment, Sam knew she had made a catastrophic error. The commander froze. The champagne flute in his hand tilted dangerously, amber liquid sloshing over the rim and onto his white-gloved hand. His face, tanned and weathered by decades of service in harsh environments, suddenly paled. "That tattoo," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Turn around." Sam remained still, every muscle in her body tensing for fight or flight. "Excuse me." "You're back," Hawkins said more insistently now. "That design, show me." Sam calculated her options rapidly. Scene or no scene, she could be out of the hotel in under 2 minutes. There were enough people around that Hawkins wouldn't attempt to physically detain her, but running would only confirm his suspicions and potentially draw more unwanted attention. Slowly, deliberately, she turned, presenting her bare back to the commander. Hawkins drew in a sharp breath. The champagne flute slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Neither of them moved to pick up the pieces. "That's not a SEAL trident," he said, his voice low and strained. "That's the Viper insignia. Trident intertwined with a serpent, the mark of Project Viper. Black Ops CIA assets embedded with SEAL teams." Sam turned back to face him, her expression carefully neutral, despite the racing of her heart. "I don't know what you're talking about, Commander." Hawkins stepped closer, lowering his voice further. "Project Viper was decommissioned in 2014 after Operation Sandstorm went sideways. All operatives were reported killed in action or missing, presumed dead." His eyes bored into hers, searching. "There were no survivors." "You seem to know a lot about a project that officially never existed," Sam replied carefully. "Because my team was there in Helmand when it all went to hell," Hawkins said. "We were the target package for Operation Sandstorm. Half my men were wounded, we were cut off from exfil, and air support was grounded due to a sandstorm." His voice grew more intense with each word. "And then a ghost saved us. A sniper we never saw, taking out hostiles with surgical precision, radio comms with a female voice giving us real-time intel that wasn't coming from official channels." Sam remained silent, her face betraying nothing. "The intel community denied any involvement," Hawkins continued. "Said it must have been local allies or a hallucination from combat stress. But we knew. My team called her Serpent, left us a message on the radio before disappearing, Serpent watches." Around them, party guests began to notice the intensity of their conversation, the broken glass at their feet. Lieutenant Lennox had emerged from the ballroom and stood watching from a distance, curiosity evident on his face. "You've mistaken me for someone else, Commander," Sam said loud enough for others to hear. "I'm just a barista." Hawkins didn't back down. "Who are you, really? What's your name, your real name?" For 3 years, Sam had lived as a ghost, hiding in plain sight, burying her past beneath layers of carefully constructed normality. For 3 years, she had been known existed nowhere in official records. The woman she had been was legally dead, her service unacknowledged, her sacrifices unmarked by medals or recognition. In that moment, standing before a man whose life she had once saved from 2,000 yards away, something inside her broke free. "Lieutenant Samantha Reynolds," she said quietly, her voice carrying only to Hawkins' ears. "CIA Special Activities Division Project Viper, call sign Serpent." The recognition that blazed in Hawkins' eyes was unmistakable shock, disbelief, and something that looked remarkably like awe. "You," he whispered. "It was you and Hellman." Before Sam could respond, Lieutenant Lennox approached, drawn by the broken glass and the obvious tension between them. "Everything all right, Commander?" he asked, his eyes darting suspiciously to Sam. Hawkins straightened, years of operational security kicking in automatically. "Fine, Lieutenant. Just a little accident with the champagne." "Sir," Lennox hesitated, then plunged ahead. "I should mention that Ms. Reeves here has been displaying what appears to be a modified seal trident tattoo. Some of the men were concerned about stolen valor." "That's not a seal trident, son," Hawkins cut him off sharply. "And Ms. Reeves hasn't stolen anything." Lennox looked confused. "But sir, the design clearly incorporates a trident, and no women have ever." "Lieutenant," Hawkins' voice carried the full weight of his rank and experience, "there are operations and units in this Navy that you have not been briefed on and likely never will be. Ms. Reeves's tattoo is not your concern. Is that clear?" Lennox's face flushed red. "Yes, sir." "Good. Now I believe you owe the lady an apology." Lennox turned to Sam, his earlier arrogance replaced by confusion and embarrassment. "I apologize for my behavior, Ms. Reeves." Sam nodded once, accepting the apology without emotion. Inside, her mind was racing, calculating the fallout from this encounter. Her cover maintained so carefully for 3 years was compromised. Hawkins knew who she was, and while he might maintain her secret, the attention drawn to her tattoo tonight could lead others to ask questions, dangerous questions. "If you'll excuse us, Lieutenant," Hawkins said dismissively, "Ms. Reeves and I have some catching up to do." As Lennox retreated, Hawkins turned back to Sam, his expression grave. "We need to talk. Not here." Sam glanced toward the ballroom where Rachel would be wondering about her extended absence. "I came with a friend. I can't just disappear." "Tell her you're not feeling well," Hawkins suggested. "There's a quiet bar down the street, Murphy's. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. Sam hesitated, years of caution warring with the sudden, unexpected connection to her past life. "Lieutenant Reynolds," Hawkins said quietly, the use of her real rank sending a jolt through her system. "I believe you're in danger. Project Viper didn't end because of mission failure. It ended because someone wanted it buried along with everyone involved." Sam's blood ran cold. The IED that had nearly killed her 3 years ago, leaving the network of scars now hidden beneath her tattoo, had never felt like an accident. But she'd had no proof, no way to know if the threat was real or paranoia born from years of covert operations. 20 minutes, she agreed. "But if you're not alone, I won't be there." Hawkins nodded once, understanding the tradecraft perfectly. 20 minutes. Alone. As the commander walked away, Sam felt the weight of her past settling around her shoulders like a familiar cloak. For 3 years, she had been Samantha Reeves' barista, an unremarkable civilian. Tonight, Lieutenant Samantha Reynolds, CIA operative and deadly ghost, had risen from the grave. And if Commander Hawkins was right, the people who had tried to put her in that grave might soon discover their mistake. Murphy's Bar sat 2 blocks from Hotel del Coronado, a weathered establishment with dim lighting and private corner booths. Unlike the trendy oceanfront venues that catered to tourists, Murphy's served career military personnel, the kind who preferred conversation over loud music and privacy over atmosphere. A framed collection of unit patches adorned one wall, silent testament to the clientele who had found refuge here over decades. Sam entered precisely 19 minutes after leaving the hotel. She had changed from her evening gown into more practical attire, dark jeans and a black sweater she kept in her emergency bag in Rachel's car. The dress was carefully folded in the same bag, along with the heels she'd replaced with soft-soled boots that would allow for quick movement if necessary. Rachel had been disappointed but understanding about her sudden migraine, more concerned with Sam's well-being than suspicious of her abrupt departure. Sam scanned the bar's interior from the entrance, assessing sightlines, identifying exits, and categorizing patrons by potential threat-level old habits that had kept her alive in places far more dangerous than a San Diego bar. Commander Hawkins sat alone in the farthest booth, a glass of amber liquid untouched before him. His dress whites were gone, replaced by civilian clothes that looked freshly purchased, still carrying the faint creases of store packaging. She approached indirectly, circling the room's perimeter rather than crossing the open floor. When she slid into the booth across from him, Hawkins didn't startle a telling detail about his own operational awareness. "You're alone," she observed. "So are you," he replied, noting her change of clothes with a professional eye. "Old habits. They die hard." A server approached, and Sam ordered a club soda with lime. Neither spoke until the drink arrived and the server departed. "Samantha Reynolds," Hawkins finally said, rolling the name around like testing unfamiliar terrain. "I searched for you after Hellman. There was nothing. No record, no trace." "That was the point," Sam replied, her fingers tracing condensation on her glass. "Project Viper operatives didn't exist on paper. Officially, I was an administrative liaison attached to diplomatic services in Kabul. But you weren't." "No." Her eyes met his directly. "I was the shooter on the ridge that night. Your team was pinned down in the village below. 3 insurgents with heavy machine guns in the eastern building, 2 snipers in the minaret to the north, and a mortar team setting up behind the ridge." Hawkins' breath caught audibly. These were details known only to those who had been there, details that had never made it into any after-action report. 8 shots, he said quietly. 8 targets neutralized in under 3 minutes in near-zero visibility conditions during a sandstorm. He shook his head in disbelief. "My men thought it was divine intervention." "It wasn't God," Sam said flatly. "It was a Schmidt and Bender PMTUI 525-56 scope with enhanced light-gathering capabilities coupled with prototype thermal overlay technology that could penetrate particulate matter in the air." A ghost of a smile touched Hawkins' weathered face, and one hell of a shooter behind it. For a moment, the years between them dissolved operator to operator, the unspoken understanding that existed between those who had seen the darkest corners of human conflict. "Why are you here, Reynolds? Why a coffee shop in Coronado when you could have disappeared anywhere?" Sam considered her answer carefully. Truth was a luxury she had rarely afforded herself since Operation Sandstorm. "After I was wounded, I needed a place to recover where medical care was accessible, but questions wouldn't be asked. Naval bases have a transient population, people come and go. No one notices another unfamiliar face." She paused. "And I needed to watch for patterns, for any sign that what happened wasn't just bad luck or operational hazard." "The IED," Hawkins said. "It wasn't a question." "Supposedly Taliban," Sam confirmed, "except it used an American-made remote detonator with encryption that insurgents didn't have access to." "You think it was deliberate?" Again, not a question. Sam's eyes hardened. "I know it was. The explosion came exactly 23 minutes after I transmitted intelligence about a poppy field being used to fund a black operation, an operation involving American contractors and agency assets." Hawkins leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. "Was that why Project Viper was shut down? Because you stumbled onto something you weren't supposed to see?" "I don't know," Sam admitted. "After the explosion, I woke up in a field hospital. My handler told me the project had been terminated due to operational security concerns. All assets were being reassigned or released from service. 3 days later, I heard that the remaining team members had been ambushed during extraction. No survivors." Silence fell between them as Hawkins processed this information. The bar had emptied further, leaving only a few patrons nursing last drinks at scattered tables. Outside, fog had rolled in from the Pacific, shrouding the street in a ghostly mist. "There's more to them," Hawkins finally said. "I'm retiring early for a reason, Reynolds." He took a sip of his untouched drink. 6 months ago, I was approached about heading up a special review of intelligence operations in Afghanistan from 2010 to 2015. Standard procedure, they said. Lessons learned for future operations. "Who approached you?" "Deputy Admiral Robert Marshall, head of Naval Intelligence Special Operations Division." Sam showed no reaction, but her mind raced through the implications. Marshall had been high enough in the chain to know about Project Viper, though not directly involved in its operations. "I started digging," Hawkins continued. "Routine at first, after-action reports, mission outcomes, asset deployments. Then I noticed discrepancies. Operation dates that didn't align with known engagements. Resources allocated that never appeared in field reports. And references to a support unit designated only as V asset that provided critical intelligence for high-risk extractions." "Viper," Sam said softly. Hawkins nodded. "The deeper I looked, the more questions emerged. And the more questions I asked, the more resistance I encountered. Files were suddenly classified beyond my clearance. Witnesses became unavailable for interviews. Then my research assistant, a bright lieutenant who had been helping compile data, was killed in what was ruled an accidental drowning. But you don't believe it was an accident. Kevin Hamilton was a triathlete who had completed 3 Ironman competitions. He didn't accidentally drown in San Diego Bay on a calm night. Hawkins' knuckles whitened around his glass. 2 days before his death, he told me he had found something odd in the financial records related to Operation Sandstorm. Money moving through channels it shouldn't have. Sam felt a cold certainty settling in her bones. Black funds. Exactly. Millions disappearing into shell companies owned by defense contractors with ties to intelligence operations. Hawkins met her eyes. 1 week after Hamilton's death, I received a strongly worded suggestion that my review was complete and retirement would be a wise choice for my health. And you agreed, Sam said, understanding dawning. But you didn't stop looking. I relocated my investigation off base, kept everything analog paper notes, no digital footprint, started creating my own network of contacts who had been in country during the relevant period. Hawkins leaned closer. That's when I started hearing whispers about female operatives with specialized skill sets who worked alongside SEAL teams but weren't part of any official unit structure. Ghosts, some called them. Others used the term serpents. Sam's expression remained neutral, but her pulse quickened. She had spent years believing she was the sole survivor of Project Viper, that all her teammates had been eliminated to bury whatever secrets they had uncovered. Now, hearing Hawkins speak of whispers, a dangerous hope flickered to life. Are there others? She asked, the question escaping before she could contain it. Other survivors? Hawkins hesitated. I don't know. But what I do know is that someone has gone to extraordinary lengths to erase Project Viper from existence. The same someone who tried to shut down my investigation with thinly veiled threats. And now I've found you, a Viper operative, believed dead serving coffee 2 miles from the largest concentration of special operations personnel on the West Coast. It's not a coincidence, Sam acknowledged. After I recovered, I needed to be somewhere I could monitor communications personnel movements. Somewhere I might recognize a face that shouldn't be there, or overhear a conversation about operations that never officially happened. You've been hunting the people who tried to kill you. No, Sam's voice was ice. I've been gathering intelligence. The hunting comes later. The corner of Hawkins' mouth twitched in what might have been approval. And now you've been compromised. That tattoo was a risk. The tattoo was necessary, Sam countered. The scars would have raised more questions. And it's not like I display it routinely. Until tonight, Hawkins pointed out. Why the change? Why expose yourself at a naval ball of all places? Sam looked away, momentarily uncomfortable with the personal nature of the question. 3 years, she finally said. 3 years of hiding, watching, waiting. Living as someone else. I guess part of me was tired of being invisible. Hawkins nodded, understanding evident in his eyes. He had known operators who, after years of covert deployments, sometimes took small, calculated risks just to feel real again, to acknowledge their own existence in a world that could never know what they had done or sacrificed. Well, your visibility has increased significantly now, he said dryly. Lieutenant Lennox isn't known for his discretion. By tomorrow, half the base will be talking about the mysterious woman with the strange trident tattoo and her connection to Commander Hawkins. Then we have a problem, Sam said, all business again. Because if the wrong people hear those rumors, they'll know Samantha Reynolds isn't as dead as they thought. Which means we need to. Hawkins stopped mid-sentence, his attention caught by something over Sam's shoulder. She didn't turn, reading the subtle shift in his posture instead. What is it? She asked quietly. 2 men just entered, Hawkins replied, his voice casual, though his eyes had sharpened. Black tactical pants, civilian jackets. Military haircuts, but no service indicators, moving with purpose. Sam took a slow sip of her drink, using the motion to cover a quick glance in the bar mirror mounted on the wall beside their booth. The men Hawkins had described were scanning the room with the methodical efficiency of trained operators. Friends of yours, she asked. Not from my unit, Hawkins answered, and not standard Navy security. One of the men spoke briefly into what appeared to be a communication device concealed in his sleeve. The movement was subtle, nearly imperceptible to anyone without specialized training. We need to leave, Sam said, already calculating exit routes and potential choke points. Back door. Through the kitchen leads to an alley that connects to Orange Avenue. Hawkins confirmed, showing his familiarity with the establishment. Staff only, but the cook owes me a favor. You go first, Sam instructed. I'll follow in 30 seconds. Less suspicious than both of us moving at once. Hawkins nodded, sliding out of the booth with the unhurried movements of someone simply heading to the restroom. Sam watched in the mirror as the two men noted his departure, but continued their scan of the room. They hadn't identified targets yet, just conducting initial reconnaissance. As Hawkins disappeared down the hallway leading to the restrooms and kitchen beyond, Sam counted slowly in her head. 27 seconds later, she gathered her jacket and stood leaving cash on the table for their drinks. She moved toward the same hallway, maintaining a relaxed posture that belied the adrenaline coursing through her system. She had nearly reached the hallway when one of the men's radios crackled audibly. Sam's enhanced hearing, trained through years of operations requiring acute audio awareness, caught fragments of the transmission. Confirmed female subject, approach with caution, armed and... The man's eyes locked with hers across the room. Recognition flashed between them, not personal recognition, but the mutual awareness of predators identifying each other in shared territory. Sam abandoned the pretense of casualness, pushing through the hallway door in a smooth sprint. Behind her, she heard the men moving, their footsteps accelerating. The narrow corridor led past restrooms to a swinging door marked staff only. Sam burst through it into the kitchen, where a startled cook looked up from a cutting board. Hawkins stood by the rear exit door, already open to the alley beyond. "Company?" he asked, noting her accelerated approach. "Confirmed pursuit," Sam replied, the operational terminology returning naturally. 2 tangos, armed communications with additional elements. They moved into the alley together, Hawkins pulling the door closed behind them. The fog had thickened, visibility reduced to less than 50 feet. It provided cover, but also limited their own situational awareness. "Vehicle?" Sam asked as they moved swiftly down the alley. 3 blocks south, Hawkins replied, "but they'll anticipate that direction." Sam made a rapid decision. "Split up. I'll create a diversion east, draw them away from your position. You head west to secondary extraction point. Meet at fallback location in 40 minutes. Hawkins frowned. "We don't have a fallback location. Sunrise Point Lighthouse, north parking area. There's a maintenance shed with poor lock security." A ghost of a smile touched Hawkins' face. "You've been planning exit strategies." "Always," Sam confirmed. "Go now. These men are after me, not you." Hawkins hesitated, the SEAL commander in him reluctant to abandon a team member to face threats alone. "You sure about this, Reynolds?" "I survived 3 years believing I was the only one left," Sam replied. "I'll survive the next 40 minutes. With a sharp nod, Hawkins turned and melted into the fog westward. Sam waited until his footsteps faded before moving in the opposite direction. At the alley's end, she paused, listening intently. The kitchen door crashed open behind her, followed by male voices and the unmistakable sound of weapons being readied. Sam sprinted east, making deliberate noise to ensure her pursuers detected her direction. The fog swirled around her as she navigated the familiar streets of Coronado, leading her hunters on a calculated chase away from Hawkins' escape route. She could have lost them easily. Her knowledge of the area's layout was comprehensive, mapped during countless morning runs and evening reconnaissance walks over the past 3 years. But she wanted them to focus entirely on her while Hawkins cleared the area. After ensuring sufficient distance from the bar, Sam turned sharply into a narrow passage between buildings, pressing herself into a recessed doorway. Moments later, her pursuers passed the alley entrance, moving with the coordinated precision of men with tactical training. She caught a glimpse of shoulder holsters and communications equipment, not standard civilian security as Hawkins had noted. These were specialized operators, likely with military or intelligence backgrounds. Once they had passed, Sam doubled back, circling around to approach the lighthouse from an unexpected direction. The fog provided excellent concealment, but it also meant she had to rely on her memory of the terrain rather than visual landmarks. 38 minutes after separating from Hawkins, she approached the maintenance shed near the Sunrise Point Lighthouse from its blind side, using the structure's shadow for additional cover. Hawkins was already there, waiting in the darkness with the patience of a man accustomed to long-duration surveillance operations. He had acquired a backpack from somewhere, its contents unknown. "Clean extraction?" Sam asked quietly. "Affirmative," Hawkins confirmed. "No signs of pursuit or surveillance. You?" 2-man team continued east. "Lost visual contact near the marina." "Professional." "Very," Sam confirmed. "Not local law enforcement or base security. These were specialized operators with advanced communications and concealed weapons." Hawkins' expression darkened. "Then our suspicions are confirmed. Someone knows you're alive, and they've mobilized resources to correct that oversight." The question is who, Sam said, keeping her voice low despite the isolated location, and how they identified me so quickly after the ball. It could be someone was already watching, Hawkins suggested. The tattoo incident with Lennox created enough of a scene to trigger established surveillance protocols. Or there was someone at the ball itself, Sam countered. Someone who recognized either you or me and made the connection to Project Viper. Either way, you're compromised, Hawkins said definitively. Your cover as Samantha Reeves is blown. They'll have your apartment under surveillance within hours, if not already. Sam had already reached the same conclusion. 3 years of careful anonymity erased in a single evening of carelessness. The go-bag in her air vent would remain there attempting to retrieve it, would be walking into a trap. I have alternate identity packages, she said, mind erasing through contingencies. Cache locations with emergency funds credentials. You maintained full escape protocols for 3 years. Hawkins sounded impressed despite the gravity of their situation. I told you, Sam replied. I've been gathering intelligence, not hiding. The mission didn't end when the project was terminated. Hawkins studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the dim light. Then he unzipped the backpack he had acquired and withdrew a manila folder. Speaking of intelligence, he said, handing her the folder, this is what got Lieutenant Hamilton killed. Sam opened the folder cautiously. Inside were photocopies of financial documents, operational logs, and what appeared to be fragments of after-action reports, all bearing classified markings and project codes she recognized from her time with Viper. Where did you get these? She asked, skimming the contents with growing concern. Hamilton had secured copies before his death, left them in a location only I would know to check. Hawkins pointed to a particular document. Look at the authorization signatures for Operation Sandstorm. Sam examined the page, noting the standard chain of command authorizations for a high-risk extraction mission. Then her eyes fell on the final signature, the ultimate authorization for deployment of Viper assets in support of SEAL Team operations. Deputy Admiral Robert Marshall, she read aloud the name Hawkins had mentioned earlier. The same man who shut down my investigation and suggested I retire for health reasons, Hawkins confirmed. And there's more. Turn to the disbursement records. Sam flipped through the documents until she found the financial pages Hamilton had uncovered. They detailed fund transfers associated with the Operation Sandstorm, standard operational budgets, equipment allocations, personnel costs. But at the bottom of the page was a separate entry coded differently from the others. Asset Liquidation Protocol, 15.7M, Authorization RM7. Asset Liquidation. Sam repeated the euphemism, chilling in its clinical detachment. RM7? Robert Marshall Level 7 classification, Hawkins confirmed grimly. Hamilton found similar entries for 3 other operations where Viper assets were deployed. In each case, substantial funds were allocated for asset liquidation shortly after mission completion. The implications were clear and horrifying. Project Viper operatives hadn't been casualties of combat operations or unfortunate accidents. They had been systematically eliminated after completing missions where they had witnessed something they shouldn't have. Marshall authorized our deployments, Sam said, connecting the pieces. He knew exactly where we would be when we would be most vulnerable, and he used that knowledge to eliminate us one by one. But why, Hawkins pressed? What did Viper operators see that was worth killing for? Sam's mind raced back through her final missions, searching for the common thread. The poppy fields, she said suddenly. Each of my last 3 deployments involved areas with significant opium production. I reported unusual activity, American contractors meeting with local warlords at harvest sites, exchanges of materials that weren't standard military supplies. Drug trafficking, Hawkins suggested. Maybe, or something worse. Sam flipped through more pages looking for additional connections. Here, equipment requisitions for Operation Sandstorm included specialized storage containers with biohazard markings. Those weren't in our mission briefing. Biohazard containers have no legitimate place in a hostage extraction operation. Hawkins agreed, his expression grim. What if it wasn't just about drugs? Sam theorized, the pieces falling into terrible alignment. Afghanistan has some of the most potent opium strains in the world. What if someone was using those resources for biological weapons development? Weaponized opioid derivatives have been in development by several countries' military programs. And if a senior American military official was involved in unsanctioned bioweapons development using Afghan opium, Hawkins didn't need to finish the sentence. It would be worth killing to keep secret, Sam concluded. worth eliminating an entire black ops program whose operators might have glimpsed the truth. The fog had begun to thin around the lighthouse moonlight, occasionally breaking through to illuminate the rocky shoreline below. In the distance, the lights of Navy vessels created a constellation of their own on the dark water. If we're right about Marshall, Hawkins said slowly, then we're talking about treason at the highest levels, unauthorized weapons development, misappropriation of military funds, and the murder of American operatives to cover it up. And now he knows I'm alive, Sam added, the one Viper operative who survived his asset liquidation protocol, which makes you the most valuable witness against him and the most significant threat to his operation. Sam closed the folder, her decision already made. Then we end it. We gather concrete evidence of Marshall's activities and expose him through secure channels. Hawkins raised an eyebrow. You're bringing me into your operation, Lieutenant. You brought yourself in when you recognized my tattoo, Commander, Sam replied. Besides, you have access I don't. Clearances, contacts, trust within the system. And you have skills I don't, Hawkins acknowledged, including 3 years of intelligence gathering on a target who doesn't know he was being watched. The implied partnership hung between them. Two operators from different worlds united by a common enemy and a shared understanding of what was at stake. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice for fallen comrades and protection of the country they had both sworn to defend. Marshall will have every available resource looking for you now, Hawkins warned. Your apartment, the cafe, any known associates, they'll all be under surveillance. Including you, Sam pointed out. After our conversation at the ball, you'll be connected to me in their assessment. Hawkins nodded grimly. Then we both need to disappear. I have a safe location, a cabin in the mountains near Julian. Off-grid defensible position stocked with supplies. Previous owner was a fellow SEAL with similar paranoid tendencies. You mean practical security protocols? Sam corrected with the ghost of a smile. Exactly, Hawkins agreed. We can regroup there, analyze Hamilton's documents more thoroughly, and develop an operational plan. Sam hesitated, years of operating alone making the prospect of partnership unfamiliar territory. There's someone I need to warn first. Rachel, my friend from the cafe. She knows nothing about any of this, but they might target her to get to me. Too risky to contact her directly, Hawkins assessed. If they're as thorough as I expect, they'll have her under observation already. Then we need another approach, Sam insisted. I won't leave her exposed to danger she doesn't understand. Hawkins considered the problem. Her husband, Thomas Mitchell, Naval Intelligence. He would have protocols for extracting his family from threat situations. Can he be trusted? Mitchell was never connected to the operations we're investigating. Different division, different chain of command. And he has a reputation for being meticulously by the book. Sam made a rapid assessment based on her own observations of Thomas Mitchell over the past 2 years. The man was indeed rigidly ethical, often to the point of inflexibility, a quality that had occasionally frustrated Rachel, but might now be their greatest asset. We need a way to alert Mitchell without exposing ourselves or triggering Marshall's surveillance, she said. I can arrange that, Hawkins assured her, but we need to move now. The longer we remain in one location, the greater the risk of detection. As if to emphasize his point, the distant sound of helicopter rotors became audible over the fog-shrouded bay. Not the usual Navy patrols, but a different signature that raised both their alertness. Blackhawk, Sam identified her trained ear, recognizing the distinctive sound pattern. Flying search pattern. They're mobilizing aerial assets, Hawkins confirmed. Your status has been elevated from locate and identify to locate and detain. Or worse, Sam added grimly. They shared a look of mutual understanding. The hunt had begun in earnest. What had started as a chance recognition of a tattoo at a naval ball had escalated into a life-or-death operation against an enemy with nearly unlimited resources and the full cover of official authority. Ready to go back to work, Lieutenant Reynolds? Hawkins asked the question, carrying layers of meaning beyond the immediate tactical situation. Sam felt a familiar calm settling over her, the operational focus that had carried her through dozens of high-risk missions in the world's most dangerous environments. For 3 years, she had been a ghost, watching and waiting. Now it was time to become the hunter once again. Lead the way, Commander. The mountain cabin stood nestled among ancient pines at 5,000 feet elevation in the Cleveland National Forest, 60 miles east of San Diego. Built by a former SEAL with an acute understanding of defensive positioning, it offered optimal security features, clear sight lines in all directions, natural barriers, limiting approach vectors, and multiple concealed exit routes through the surrounding wilderness. Inside, the space was Spartanly functional, a testament to military efficiency rather than comfort. Dawn broke over the eastern ridge line, casting long shadows across the valley below. Sam stood at the cabin's rear window, Schmidt and Bender spotting scope trained on the winding access road 3 miles distant. She had maintained watch for 6 hours, relieving Hawkins at midnight after their arrival. Her body functioned on the familiar rhythm of combat operations, short sleep cycles, heightened awareness, and the peculiar clarity that came with controlled adrenaline management. Movement on the south ridge, she reported, as Hawkins emerged from the cabin's small bedroom, a steaming mug of coffee in hand. Single male, civilian hiking gear but moving with tactical discipline. Hawkins joined her at the window, accepting the scope. Local. Negative. Clothing too new. Standard issue boots poorly disguised with civilian hiking soles. Marshall isn't wasting time, Hawkins observed, studying the distant figure. Forward scout for a larger team, most likely. Agreed. Sam sipped from her own mug, black coffee strong enough to strip paint. They've established a search grid pattern. This one's recording approach, vectors identifying defensive positions. Which means the main force is still mobilizing, Hawkins concluded, lowering the scope. We have perhaps 6 hours before they secure the perimeter and begin closing in. Sam nodded, tactical assessment already underway. They had spent the night reviewing Lieutenant Hamilton's documents in exhaustive detail, connecting fragments of intelligence into a coherent operational picture. The evidence against Deputy Admiral Marshall was damning, but still circumstantial enough to raise serious questions, but not enough to overcome the considerable protections of his rank and position. What about Mitchell? She asked, thoughts turning to Rachel's safety. Message delivered through secure channels at 400, Hawkins confirmed. Old school dead drop at his regular coffee shop, not the one where you work. Instructions to initiate family protection protocols due to unspecified security concern. Will he act on it? Mitchell built his career on procedures and protocol. The message used authentication codes known only to senior naval intelligence personnel. He'll follow standard operating procedure, relocate his family to a secure location, and report the security alert up his chain of command. Which doesn't include Marshall, Sam noted with approval. Correct. Different division, different reporting structure. By the time Marshall becomes aware of Mitchell's security protocols, Rachel will be safely contained in a naval protection facility. Sam allowed herself a small measure of relief. Rachel's safety had weighed on her conscience since their abrupt departure from the naval ball. The cafe owner had shown her genuine kindness without asking questions about her past, a rare gift in Sam's experience. We should move, she said, practical considerations overtaking personal concerns. Scout's trajectory suggests they've identified this location as a probability, not just a possibility. Agreed. Hawkins was already gathering the documents they had spent the night analyzing. But we need a secure communications point to transmit what we've found to the right people. And who exactly are the right people? Sam asked, the question that had troubled their planning session throughout the night. I have one contact who might help, Hawkins said after a moment's consideration. Captain William Blackwood, Naval Intelligence Oversight Division, old-school career officer, predates Marshall's rise to power. We served together in the Gulf during Desert Storm. Can he be trusted? Blackwood was passed over for promotion 3 times because he refused to play politics. Man's moral compass is annoyingly consistent. A hint of fondness colored Hawkins' tone. More importantly, he has direct access to the Director of Naval Intelligence, bypassing Marshall's position entirely. Sam considered this information with the careful assessment of an operative accustomed to evaluating asset reliability. That's still a significant risk. If Marshall has influence beyond his direct chain of command, every operation requires calculated risk, Hawkins interrupted. We can't move against a deputy admiral without internal allies. Blackwood is our best option. Sam nodded, conceding the point. How do we make contact without exposing our position? There's a secure SATCOM in the emergency kit, Hawkins replied, moving toward a concealed compartment beneath the cabin's main room. Military-grade encryption frequency hopping protocol to prevent triangulation. Your retirement planning was impressively thorough, Sam observed dryly. I prefer to call it practical preparation for contingencies. Hawkins returned with equal dryness. While Hawkins retrieved the communication equipment, Sam began systematic preparation for departure, checking weapons, organizing essential gear, and ensuring no evidence of their presence would remain. The familiar routine of operational security grounded her in the present moment, pushing aside the larger questions that loomed over their improvised mission. 30 minutes later, Hawkins had established contact through the secure line. His conversation with Captain Blackwood was brief, clinical in its precision, revealing only essential information without compromising operational details. Blackwood is activating a secure meeting protocol, he reported after ending the transmission. Naval Storage Facility 7, San Diego Harbor, 1900 hours. Restricted access, minimal personnel, no electronic surveillance. Sounds like a trap, Sam noted without inflection. It would be, Hawkins agreed, if anyone besides Blackwood knew about it. The facility is listed as decommissioned in official records, one of several Cold War-era intelligence blind spots maintained for exactly this type of situation. Cold War protocols, Sam mused, fitting since we're essentially dealing with a mole hunt. More than fitting, it's strategically sound, Hawkins countered. Digital systems are vulnerable to access by those with sufficient clearance. Marshall can monitor electronic communications security camera feeds, access logs. What he can't monitor are systems that aren't connected to anything. Sam nodded her understanding. The old-school approach made tactical sense, reverting to methodologies that predated modern surveillance capabilities. It was a calculated regression to counter technological advantages. We need to move before the search team establishes a cordon, she said, returning to immediate concerns. Scout has likely already transmitted our probable location. Agreed. Northwest descent, then separate vehicles from the emergency cache at Miller's Creek. Hawkins outlined. I'll approach the meeting point from the north, you from the south. Standard counter-surveillance protocols. And if it is a trap, Sam asked, not questioning the plan, but ensuring contingencies were addressed. Then we implement fallback protocol, Sierra, Hawkins replied without hesitation. Extraction point at Coronado Bridge, maintenance access, 2200 hours. Blackwood knows to send a recognition signal, red marker, light north pier, visible from water, approach only. Sam found herself impressed with Hawkins' operational planning. The commander had clearly maintained high-level tradecraft despite years of official service. It spoke to a healthy paranoia that had likely kept him alive through decades of special operations. One more thing, Hawkins added as they prepared for departure. Lieutenant Lennox and his team have been asking questions since the ball. Word is they're running an unofficial investigation into your background, off the books using personal connections. Sam paused, recalling the brash young officer who had mocked her tattoo. How does that affect our operation? It might not, Hawkins conceded, but they're operating outside official channels, which means Marshall may not be monitoring them. You think they could be useful? Sam interpreted, seeing his direction. I think having additional operators working parallel vectors might create useful diversions, Hawkins clarified. Lennox may be arrogant, but he's not stupid, and he's got something to prove now. Sam considered the possibility, weighing tactical advantages against operational security concerns. Your call, Commander. They're your people. Hawkins nodded once decision made. I'll place a message in the usual drop for SEAL team briefings. Nothing explicit, just enough to point them in a productive direction. With their exit strategy confirmed, they departed the cabin through separate routes. Hawkins taking the Northwest Trail while Sam disappeared into the dense forest to the northeast. Both moved with the silent efficiency of operators accustomed to hostile territory navigation, leaving minimal trace of their passage. The sun had fully cleared the eastern mountains by the time Sam reached the emergency vehicle cache, a nondescript storage shed on private property owned through a series of shell corporations, ultimately connected to former Special Operations personnel. Inside, 3 vehicles with clean registration and untraceable histories waited for precisely this type of scenario. Sam selected an older model Toyota pickup, functional, common enough to avoid notice, with sufficient power for tactical driving if necessary. The key was exactly where Hawkins had indicated, along with additional supplies, including a satellite phone, emergency funds, and basic weapons. Checking her watch, a mechanical Seiko that couldn't be tracked electronically, she calculated travel time to San Diego with built-in security buffers. The meeting with Blackwood was still hours away, providing time for thorough counter-surveillance measures before approaching the rendezvous point. As she guided the truck down winding mountain roads, Sam's mind processed the accumulated intelligence from Hamilton's documents. The pattern was clear. Project Viper operatives had been systematically eliminated after witnessing aspects of Marshall's illicit operation. The bioweapon development using Afghan opium derivatives represented a catastrophic breach of international law, military protocol, and basic human ethics. If weaponized opioids had been developed under Marshall's authority, the potential for devastating misuse was incalculable. The road descended from mountain forest into the arid landscape east of San Diego, temperature rising as elevation dropped. Sam maintained strict driving discipline, obeying all traffic laws, maintaining posted speed limits. Nothing that would draw attention from law enforcement or traffic cameras. She executed textbook counter-surveillance maneuvers at irregular intervals, confirming no consistent vehicles appeared in her mirrors across multiple location changes. By late afternoon, she had reached the industrial outskirts of San Diego, the harbor visible in the distance. The naval storage facility would be located in the older section of the naval yards, an area largely supplanted by modern installations, but maintained for historical and occasional practical purposes. Sam parked 3 blocks from the designated rendezvous point, choosing a public lot with multiple exit routes. She proceeded on foot, maintaining awareness of surveillance cameras and adjusting her route to minimize facial exposure. Her clothing was deliberately forgettable: jeans, gray jacket, baseball cap pulled low. Just another civilian contractor heading home after a day's work in the Naval Industrial Complex. The storage facility appeared exactly as Hawkins had described: a weathered concrete structure with minimal external markings surrounded by similar buildings in various states of disuse. A faded sign indicated restricted access, though the security features visible to casual observation were outdated and minimal. Sam approached from the south as planned, using adjacent buildings for concealment while assessing the location for signs of surveillance or ambush preparation. Nothing triggered her finely tuned operational instincts: no unusual personnel movements, no recently repositioned vehicles, no fresh scuff marks where equipment might have been installed. At precisely 1845 hours, she identified Hawkins approaching from the northern vector, employing similar counter-surveillance techniques. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, professional acknowledgement rather than personal recognition. He indicated the all clear with a subtle hand gesture borrowed from SEAL Team close quarters communication protocols. Sam circled to the eastern access point as Hawkins continued toward the main entrance. If Blackwood honored the meeting parameters, he would arrive alone within the next 15 minutes. If the meeting was compromised, their staggered approach provided tactical flexibility for extract or engagement as required. At 1857 hours, a sedan with civilian plates approached the facility, driving pattern indicating professional caution without specialized tactical training. The vehicle parked in the designated area near the main entrance, and a single occupant emerged, male approximately 60 years old, wearing civilian business attire beneath a weather-appropriate overcoat. Sam observed through compact high-definition binoculars as Hawkins made contact with the arrival, presumably Captain Blackwood. Their interaction showed no warning signs, no tension in body positioning, no coded distress signals, no evidence of coercion. After a brief exchange, both men entered the facility through the main entrance. Sam maintained her position for an additional 7 minutes, scanning surrounding areas for signs of surveillance or tactical teams. Satisfied with the initial security assessment, she proceeded to the eastern access point, a service entrance Hawkins had identified during their planning session. The door opened as she approached Hawkins, having navigated through the interior to provide access. He nodded once, confirming secure conditions, and led her through dimly lit corridors to a central room deep within the facility. Captain William Blackwood stood beside a metal table that dominated the space, his posture military straight despite civilian clothes. His face bore the weathered lines of a career naval officer, eyes sharp with intelligence and caution. He studied Sam with professional assessment rather than personal curiosity. "Lieutenant Reynolds," he greeted her with a formal nod. "Your reputation in certain circles was considerable." Was, Sam noted the past tense. "Officially, you died 3 years ago in Afghanistan," Blackwood replied matter-of-factly. "Commander Hawkins has provided a compelling argument for your continued existence." "And you believed him without verification?" Sam challenged, testing the captain's operational security. "I believe evidence," Blackwood corrected, gesturing to documents spread across the table. "These financial records correlate with intelligence anomalies I've been tracking for 18 months. The commander's assessment of your situation simply provides contextual framework." Sam felt a measure of cautious approval. Blackwood was appropriately skeptical, basing acceptance on verifiable evidence rather than personal trust. It aligned with Hawkins' assessment of the man's character. "What's your involvement in this investigation, Captain?" she asked directly. "Naval Intelligence Oversight has been monitoring unusual patterns in operational funding for specialized deployment groups," Blackwood explained. "Discrepancies between allocated resources and reported field utilization. Nothing definitively illegal, but sufficient irregularity to warrant discreet examination. And what have you found? Hawkins prompted. Fragments, Blackwood admitted. Money disappearing into classified project codes. Personnel transfers that don't align with standard protocols. Equipment requisitions that exceed operational requirements. He indicated Hamilton's documents. Nothing as concrete as what your lieutenant uncovered. Hamilton, Hawkins corrected grimly. These came from Hamilton. Before Marshall had him killed, Sam added. Blackwood's expression hardened at the direct accusation. That's a serious allegation against a deputy admiral. It's a serious crime, Sam countered without apology. Along with the systematic elimination of Project Viper operatives and the development of unauthorized biological weapons using Afghan opium derivatives. You have proof of these claims, Blackwood challenged, though his tone suggested he already anticipated the answer. Circumstantial evidence, Hawkins admitted. Compelling patterns, but not definitive proof. That's why we needed this meeting. Sam stepped forward, indicating specific documents from Hamilton's collection. These financial transfers correlate with Viper deployment dates. Each operation where we encountered unusual activity involving opium production facilities was followed by substantial asset liquidation payments authorized directly by Marshall. And those assets were your colleagues, Blackwood interpreted. Precisely, Sam confirmed. After witnessing activities at these locations, Viper operatives were systematically eliminated IEDs, ambushes, accidents during extraction. The only reason I survived was a delayed detonation that left me wounded but alive, presumed dead in the official record. Blackwood studied the documents with renewed intensity, his professional skepticism visibly conflicting with the evidence before him. If true, this represents treason at the highest levels, he said finally. But moving against someone of Marshall's position requires absolute incontrovertible evidence, the kind that would stand up to congressional oversight and military tribunal scrutiny. Which is why we need your help, Hawkins stated plainly. Marshall controls too many systems, has access to too many resources. We need secure channels to continue this investigation and develop actionable evidence. And protection, Sam added. Marshall's already deployed operational teams to locate and eliminate us. Standard asset liquidation protocol. Blackwood considered their request the decades of naval intelligence experience evident in his measured assessment. I can provide limited secure communications and temporary resource allocation through compartmented channels. But ultimately, you need physical evidence of Marshall's bioweapon program to justify official intervention. The research facility, Sam realized memories of her final mission suddenly crystallizing into focus. Observation position, Sierra 3, Helmand Province. I logged unusual container movements between a processing facility and what appeared to be a research installation. Specialized equipment being delivered under military escort. You think the development program is still active? Hawkins asked. Marshall invested too many resources to abandon it entirely, Sam reasoned. Even if the Afghan operation was compromised or relocated, the research data would have been preserved, which means continuation somewhere secure, somewhere with controlled access. Blackwood followed her logic. A domestic black site, Hawkins suggested, classified research facility with legitimate cover operations. Blackwood's expression shifted subtly a recognition rather than surprise. 3 months ago, Naval Intelligence Oversight flagged unusual security protocols at the Rayburn Medical Research Center in Northern Virginia, ostensibly conducting research on combat injury treatment, but with security measures exceeding classification parameters. Marshall's facility, Sam concluded. Possibly, Blackwood cautioned. The center operates under Office of Naval Research Authority, but maintains independent security protocols outside standard naval oversight. Marshall serves on its governing board. We need to confirm what's happening inside that facility. Hawkins stated the mission parameters already forming in his tactical assessment. Impossible through official channels, Blackwood warned. The facility has authorized autonomy under National Security Directive 47B. Even my oversight authority is limited to peripheral review. Sam exchanged a meaningful glance with Hawkins, unspoken understanding passing between them. If official channels couldn't provide access, unofficial methods became the only remaining option. We need transport to Virginia, she said decisively. Clean documentation, basic equipment, and communications protocols that won't trigger Marshall's surveillance systems. You're proposing an unauthorized covert operation against a naval research facility, Blackwood pointed out, though his tone lacked genuine objection. That's several federal crimes even before considering the implications if you're wrong about Marshall. And if we're right, Hawkins countered, if a deputy admiral is developing illegal biological weapons and murdering American intelligence operatives to cover his actions, Blackwood's response was interrupted by three sharp clicks from the secure radio on his belt, a predetermined warning signal from his security perimeter. "We have company," he announced calmly, professional training overriding any alarm. Multiple vehicles approaching from the north and east access roads. Hawkins moved immediately to the room's single window, maintaining position outside the direct sight line while assessing the approaching threat. "Four SUVs, tactical deployment pattern," he reported. "Professional operators, not standard Navy security." Marshall's response team, Sam concluded, already calculating exit strategies. "How did they find this location?" "Electronic tracking is impossible with the measures we took," Hawkins stated with certainty. "Unless they weren't tracking us," Sam realized, eyes shifting to Blackwood. "They were tracking you, Captain." Blackwood's expression confirmed her assessment. "Standard naval intelligence protocols include location monitoring for senior personnel. I disabled my official devices, but there would be backups," Hawkins finished grimly. "Passive systems embedded in equipment vehicles, even personal items. Which means we have approximately 3 minutes before this facility is compromised." Blackwood calculated, already moving toward a wall panel that concealed an antiquated communication system. "I need to transmit what we've discovered through secure channels before they breach the perimeter." "You'll be arrested," Sam pointed out. "Marshall will ensure anything you transmit is discredited." "Not if I send it through the appropriate channels," Blackwood countered, activating the Cold War-era equipment with practiced efficiency. Direct to Director Kavanaugh with authentication codes predating Marshall's authority structure. "We need to move," Hawkins urged, checking his weapon with the automatic precision of thousands of combat operations. "South exit leads to maintenance tunnels connecting to the main harbor facilities." Sam nodded, gathering essential documents while maintaining situational awareness of the approaching threat. Outside vehicle engines had gone silent, tactical teams deploying for building breach rather than direct confrontation. "Go," Blackwood ordered, "focus entirely on the transmission equipment. I'll delay them, provide explanation for my presence that doesn't involve either of you." "They'll know you've made contact," Sam warned. "Let them," Blackwood replied with the calm resolve of a career officer who understood sacrifice. "What matters is getting proof of Marshall's operation. Everything else is secondary." Hawkins clasped Blackwood's shoulder briefly, soldier to soldier, unspoken respect and acknowledgement of shared duty. Then he moved toward the south exit, Sam following with tactical precision born of years operating in hostile environments. The maintenance tunnels were dimly lit concrete passageways dating from the facility's original construction, Cold War architecture designed for personnel movement during potential Soviet attacks. Sam and Hawkins navigated by memory of facility schematics Blackwood had provided during their brief strategic planning. Behind them, muffled sounds of the tactical team breaching the main entrance echoed through the aging structure. Ahead lay uncertainty, a mission with minimal support against an adversary with nearly unlimited resources and the full protective cover of official authority. "Rayburn facility will have state-of-the-art security," Sam noted as they moved professional assessment rather than concern. "Biometric access, motion sensors, armed response teams. Then we'll need specialized assistance," Hawkins replied, surprising her with a hint of tactical humor. "Good thing Lieutenant Lennox and his team are so eager to prove themselves." Sam raised an eyebrow. "You're bringing untested operators into a covert insertion against a black site research facility." "Not untested," Hawkins corrected as they reached the tunnel's southern exit. "Inexperienced in this type of operation, perhaps. But Lennox qualified top of his class in tactical infiltration scenarios. And more importantly, his team operates completely outside Marshall's awareness or authority structure. Unconventional," Sam acknowledged, "but potentially effective." She paused at the exit door, listening for movement outside before proceeding. "How do we make contact?" "Already arranged," Hawkins revealed. "The message I left at the SEAL team briefing point included emergency contact protocols. If Lennox followed standard procedures after discovering it, he'll be waiting at the extraction point." Sam completed the thought, understanding the commander's strategy. The harbor air carried the familiar scent of salt and diesel as they emerged from the maintenance tunnel into the growing darkness of early evening. Security lights illuminated the main naval facilities to the west, but this older section remained shadowed and largely deserted. "Coronado Bridge extraction point," Hawkins confirmed as they moved along the perimeter, maintaining cover positions while advancing toward the harbor's southern edge. And if Lennox didn't get the message, Sam questioned practical, operational assessment rather than doubt. Then we proceed alone, Hawkins replied simply. The mission parameters remain unchanged regardless of available personnel. Sam nodded her agreement. After 3 years of solitary vigilance, the prospect of undertaking a high-risk operation against a secured facility represented a return to familiar territory rather than a deterrent. As they approached the water's edge near the massive concrete supports of the Coronado Bridge, Sam scanned for the recognition signal. Hawkins had specified a red marker light visible only from the water approach. For several tense moments, darkness prevailed. Then, precisely where it should be, a faint red glow appeared blinking in the predetermined pattern. Looks like Lieutenant Lennox followed procedures after all, Hawkins noted with professional satisfaction. Let's hope his discretion matches his enthusiasm, Sam replied. They proceeded to the rendezvous point, a maintenance access platform beneath the bridge's main span, accessible only by water or through service corridors with restricted security clearance. As they approached, 3 figures emerged from the shadows, moving with the coordinated precision of special operations training. Lieutenant Lennox stood at the center, flanked by 2 of his team members from the naval ball. His expression as he recognized Sam shifted from surprise to professional focus, the arrogance she had witnessed at the cafe replaced by operational discipline. Commander, he acknowledged Hawkins formally. Your message indicated urgent security concerns regarding potential compromise at senior command levels. Correct, Lieutenant, Hawkins confirmed. The situation has escalated beyond initial assessment. We're now operating under Autonomous Protocol 793. Lennox's eyes widened slightly. Recognition of an emergency protocol that authorized independent action when command structure was potentially compromised. Understood, sir. His gaze shifted to Sam, reassessment evident in his changed demeanor. And Ms. Reeves, Lieutenant Samantha Reynolds, Hawkins corrected the formal introduction, deliberate and pointed. Former CIA Special Activities Division Project Viper, the operative who saved my team in Helmand Province during Operation Sandstorm. The SEAL team's reaction was immediate, subtle but unmistakable shifts in posture expressions recalibrating as they processed this information. The tattoo that Lennox had mocked now carried entirely different significance in their professional assessment. Lieutenant, Lennox acknowledged Sam with newfound respect, the honorific deliberate. My team is at your disposal. Sam nodded once, acceptance rather than forgiveness for past behavior. What mattered now was operational capability, not personal history. We have confirmed intelligence regarding illegal weapons development at a classified naval research facility. Hawkins briefed the team, efficiency born of countless mission preparations. Deputy Admiral Marshall has deployed specialized assets to eliminate witnesses and conceal evidence. Sir, one of Lennox's teammates spoke up, professional caution evident. Accusations against the Deputy Admiral are supported by documentation and the testimony of Captain William Blackwood, Naval Intelligence Oversight Division. Hawkins completed firmly. Our mission is simple: infiltrate the Rayburn Medical Research Center, secure evidence of biological weapons development using modified opioid compounds, and extract without detection. A covert operation against a naval facility, Lennox summarized, tone indicating complete understanding of the implications. Correct, Lieutenant, Hawkins confirmed. Participation is strictly voluntary and completely off the record. Success means exposing treason at the highest levels of naval command. Failure means court-martial, at minimum possibly charges of treason. The 3 SEALs exchanged glances, unspoken communication born of shared training and operational experience. Then Lennox turned back to Hawkins, decision made. What's the infiltration timeline, Commander? Hawkins allowed a brief smile, pride in the younger generation of operators who understood duty beyond bureaucracy and rank. Immediate deployment, he replied. Marshall's team has compromised our position here. We need to move before additional assets are mobilized. Transport to Virginia, Sam questioned practically. Arrange by ferries. Lennox surprised them by answering. We have access to an unmarked transport helicopter through training allocation protocols. Officially assigned for night navigation exercises over the Pacific. Sam raised an eyebrow, reassessing the lieutenant's operational capabilities. Impressive resource allocation, Lieutenant. I may have occasionally bent regulations for training purposes, Lennox admitted with a hint of the confidence she had first witnessed in the cafe, though now tempered with professional focus. Then we have our extraction, Hawkins concluded. Lieutenant Reynolds will brief you on facility details and operational parameters en route. As they moved toward the waiting helicopter concealed at a private dock nearby, Sam felt the familiar calm of mission preparation settling over her. For 3 years, she had existed in limbo, neither fully civilian nor operative, watching from shadows while gathering intelligence on the organization that had betrayed her and killed her colleagues. Now the waiting was over. Operation Justice had begun the mission to expose Marshall's treason and honor the fallen members of Project Viper. Whatever the outcome, Sam knew with absolute certainty that she had returned to her true purpose. Not as a barista serving coffee to sailors, but as the operative her tattoo had always identified her to be. Serpent, the unseen guardian, who watched from darkness and struck with lethal precision when necessary. The helicopter rose into the night sky above San Diego Harbor, banking eastward toward Virginia, and the confrontation that would either bring justice for the fallen or add their names to the list of those who had died in service to principles larger than themselves.